By the way, I'd like to start with my thanks as the setup is being prepared. Well, we already took part in previous Fintech weeks, and then we joined the online version of it. And this year it's been a great addition as well. We'd like to thank Demet for this, for organizing it, and for inviting us. Now that everybody is on the stage, I'm going to be seated as well. First of all, thank you very much for being with us on this panel. This is a very good representation of the industry, of the sector. We have SEDDK, and we have heard from the deputy chairperson of the Insurance Association of Turkey. We have two important representatives from the elementary section, and for individual pensions and retirement, we have Cigna. And thank you very much for being with us and for joining us today on this panel. And as Mehmet Akif mentioned, we have been criticizing this for years, and last year Bilal also talked about it. Innovation in insurance, unfortunately, has always been quite an internal process, and many things are happening outside. Web3, blockchain, crypto. We're talking about all these different technologies and all the ways of doing business. And every industry, they're changing. And new generations have different expectations. They have different perspectives in life. And they have different expectations from us as well. And on top of this, we are in an environmental transformation process, and this is a responsibility we have, and the climate is also changing, and this is bringing along new responsibilities for us to take. And the essence of history, it has a long history, 300 years of history involving the transfer of risks. So it is about an individual assuming somebody else's risk. And in Turkey and in the world, we wonder if there's going to be an Uber moment for insurance, because Uber has changed the paradigm of car ownership. Maybe risk transfer and the risk coverage paradigm, will it be changed? Or rather than a disruptive change, maybe innovations will be part of insurance, and it will be the driving force of changes in the industry. So from the changes that you experienced in the world, I wonder your expectations about the changes in the insurance industry. Rather than saying disruptive, I'd like to say innovative changes, and I think it has started already in the world and in Turkey. Although we haven't seen it in Turkey, in England and in India and in Brazil, we have an incredible number of startups, and catching up with this momentum, we've been a bit slow, but maybe this Uber moment has taken place already, and we need to think about how to catch up with it. According to the Fintech status and insurance status in the banking and retail sector, studies like that have started in 2020. A great leap has been taken by the banking industry, thanks to some regulations as well. But the pandemic also happened, and we all stayed at home back then. And digital platforms, although we were prejudiced against them, we had to do shopping on these platforms. So consumption habits and even the existing generations had some rupture, and this resulted in a leap, and the trend was also there, but we've gained further momentum, and more momentum was injected by the regulation. And as the consumer habits are changing, they've become more sophisticated, and they started to demand tailored services. They have pushed the supply, and this also pushed companies to be more innovative. And this is not only about the demand being there to push the supply. more realistic data delivery and innovative technologies were more important. Blockchain was one of them. Artificial intelligence, especially for the insurance industry, for risk analysis and risk assessment, it was quite important. With AI, when we have a compact look at it, it's been an incredible leap for the insurance industry. Rather than discussing on the Uber moment, how to really make it more sustainable in the South Asian countries, in Israel, for example, it is the center of startups right now. So in terms of the representatives of the sector, what should we really do and what should we catch up with? We need to think about it. I will be talking about it more. And in this environment, financial expansion is also important because they wanted to have more intelligible products, and it has resulted in operational efficiency. For example, damage calculation and easier management. So it was a win-win environment, but this gave rise to the birth of an ecosystem, and this ecosystem sprawling and expanding in a consistent manner. We need to play a role here. Ecosystem is there. The Uber moment has already taken place, and how to really not miss that train. Because this is where the world is headed. According to reports, 26% is going to be the annual growth in this market, and it's going to be exponential. And when we think about other technologies, blockchain, Web 3.0, we didn't know. So in the coming 5 years, we will even hear more and more concepts and newer concepts. So in terms of sector representatives, we need to be visionary. We need to be catching up with this trend as well. So in the second round, I will talk about regulations, and I will talk about our perspectives there, and I will talk about our agenda for these regulations as well. This is a good framework, and in this framework, you are the insurance companies that speak to people's demands. And so now I'd like to give the floor to you. Insurance is a very conventional profession. 200 years ago, the mentality was probably quite similar to today's mentality. And we are making classifications, we are looking at probabilities, we are doing the pricing, and we evaluate the cash raised in funds, and then we finalize the insurance transaction. This is how it goes for years now. With digitization, at certain points we had differentiations, and as the president mentioned, perception was quite important, and procedures, ways of doing business. We have basically deployed robots to give us further speed. Machine learning, all these technologies helped us acquire pace, but a core fundamental change has not really taken place. We are still taking out policies in the same fashion. Well, 60% or 65% is the agency sales only. And in schools, there are different periods. And we are in the digital and physical age. So we are not fully there when it comes to full digital era. And as for insurance companies, we have huge opportunities, we have huge potential. Insurance industry is a regulated industry. Capital markets are like that, and it is a very regulated sector, extremely regulated sector, because to avoid all risks and to prevent all the harm to customers, consumers, it needs to be regulated heavily. And the infrastructure should be very prepared so that it can open up. Open banking regulation was released, and then payment systems started to open up. And the same thing should go for the insurance industry. The infrastructure should be established very well. And as this is happening, all the stakeholders and interest groups, what kind of an added value is being created? This should be questioned. 16,000 agencies, we have thousands of employees it represents, it corresponds to. Motor insurance, for example, can you sell it digitally? Yes, you can. You go there, and when you completely cross out the agency, what's going to happen? And why do we need insurance companies? Well, this is another question mark that we have. So infrastructure should be very well positioned for it. Web3, blockchain-based developments, well, it is all about how we are going to use our pillars. A platform is going to be established, and who is going to cover the cost of it, and who is going to be involved, and maybe innovation will define it. And without blockchain, these companies, we started to reflect these changes. Embedded product, we say. What do? Is we are purchasing a flight ticket, an accident insurance, we can offer it. Or when you are purchasing a mobile phone, for example, crack insurance, we can offer to extend the life cycle of the product. Or parametric insurances. At the moment of risk taking place, the amounts can be paid directly, automatically. And we have a product called My Flight is Safe. So when you have any delays in your flight, some certain amounts are going to be refunded to you, because we can draw that data from the system. Maybe earthquake versions are going to be developed. This is the greatest disaster of the history of the Republic. 100 billion TL is going to be paid, and 76 billion is going to be paid by insurers. And we have only covered 20% of it, because the processes are quite long. And if it had been parametric, it would have been much faster. And unfortunately, the regulations inside of it should be handled, behind it should be handled. And for this, I am quite hopeful. But first, the fundamental issues should be tackled. Agencies, for example, well, agencies, we are offering branches so that they can be digitized too. And for an agency to operate digitally, they need to put a capital of 500,000 TL. So we are somehow absorbing the risk for them. And this should be questioned. For remote sales, you can't sell everything remotely, right? So they all need to be established with correct infrastructure. And digitization and the sales of the product is always what we look into. But digitization is an end-to-end process, and damages are quite important, and we can't even manage the costs at the moment. So any attempt for us to manage this is going to help us for this. Thank you very much, Fatih. So this is the implications of all the changes on the insurance, and we've started seeing these changes as well, and this is very much appreciated. And Burak, I have a question for you for the individual retirement and for life, and for an international insight, I'd like to give the floor to you. Yes, sure. Well, insurance has a well-established history, and this means that change is difficult, but this is the perception that we have. But I think this is also an opportunity among all disruptive methods for change. Today, for example, I'd like to talk about 4 different areas. The first is customer-centric transformation. Özgür and the President made a reference to that. We are a sales-focused sector. This is the perspective that we have, but making a shift from sales to customer, it is essential for us. And the drivers for that is to address customers' needs at the right timing. And the prerequisite for it is to make use of big data. For us to go through this transformation, we need to enrich data. We have to use more data. So the banking in the depth and scale of data the banking has, we need to be closer to them. So this is how we can attain transformation, internal transformation. And the second topic I'd like to mention is, well, health and life insurances. I'd like to focus on that. Well, well-being, the wellness, well-being applications are there as well, and there are important opportunities there. Insurance companies do not only offer passive assurances. Insurance companies should also motivate people towards well-being. It should motivate and guide people to adopt new styles, lifestyles. Could they really act as life coaches, for example? Could they really be part of customers' daily, day-to-day activities? Could they really support customers here? Mobile applications, well, it is not really about self-service channels. Maybe these channels can be channels through which insurance companies can become part of customers' lives. And telemedicine is also an area that we need to focus on. Remote medical applications, online interviews, examinations, and diagnoses. And with the speed that we've gained, well, customers can access healthcare services in a rapid manner, but at the same time, this is an important opportunity for cost cutting. But what about the supporters for that? Digital health applications and health monitoring technologies. It is thanks to that that customers can monitor their health data very closely. But for customer insurance, for insurance companies, it is providing an important source of data. This is an opportunity for us as well. And this is not less important, by the way. Well, productive AI, where it is today, it is really something that we cannot compare with the 90s. I remember Google coming into our lives in 2000s, and I believe that one of those moments has come already. Let me put it this way, Fintech Week. Health insurance. I have prepare me a speech I can say to AI, and it can prepare me a speech. We've had speakers like that. I tested it. I wanted to see what it generates, and it is really meaningful content. It is really charged content, and it is related with the entire business world, and disruptive technologies are standing right in front of us, and the Uber moment has already come for us. And Bilal, can can insurance companies really address the customers' needs was one of the questions that we addressed and discussed in the previous year's session, and what happened in the past 12 months and what has changed. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions and for inviting me here. We've heard from Akif, we've heard from Özgür, and the president made good points. And being the last speaker is bad luck, people tend to think, but I always consider that good luck. I don't really want to be the opponent here, but Uber moment is a radical moment, and some groundwork has been laid already. Akif said that it's been here for years already, for centuries, and the insurance industry and end-to-end digitization, we can't talk about it as other speakers said. So insurance is a huge ecosystem. It involves agencies, brokers, experts, And these are the main actors: hospitals and pharmacies, repair shops, assistants. So we have many of these. And what we call a product does not really end with selling the policy, the moment of selling it, and the payment for compensation. It's about many stakeholders creating value concurrently. So when you look at insurance as a whole, it's a very broad one. Well, 3,600 insurance companies are being established in the US right now. And for us to make certain investments, scale is quite important. But if you are an expert somewhere, you can introduce innovation. I mean, in terms of our products, we are so big that 50 other companies could be created with our products. And all my comments, I'm saying it for today, I am saying it for the circumstances of the day. And if we are talking about the Uber moment, for many, many products, it is not really possible. For many products, I don't really think that it's possible. But it's not really for all products, because there is healthcare insurance. And healthcare insurance, health insurance company is there, and the healthcare system is there. Telemedicine, we say, IoT is there, remote examination and testing. So healthcare ecosystem is ready, and for that, insurance companies can adapt themselves to it. So can we really have an Uber moment in that particular area? Yes. But as for other products, I can't really speak that clearly. But I think that it's going to be possible in the coming 20 years. And what I'm hearing from all other speakers is that the maturity or viability of the market, the viability of the regulations, we are subjected to very heavy regulations. It is quite important for the stability, for financial stability. And the insurance companies have a long-term perspective here. Technology developments are taking place, which triggers innovation. We are subjected to heavy regulations, but some work is going to be done. And for innovation, it is not enough for the market to be at that stage. For the authority, leadership is quite important. Who is going to lead innovation? Who is going to set the rules for the game?
And at the same time, that was the Uber moment. But yes, we do have innovation in insurance, and you should not only interrelate it with technology. We're talking about services, processes, products, and organizations. It's about transformation of business model, and that's what attracts us a lot. Spotify, for example, entered into subscription system, but then the Kaizen approach of Toyota, that's a different. iPhone is an example from the product side, but along with ChatGPT coming in, I hope our efficiency will go up. Google has a 20% rule per week. So what they do is you go and work on your own projects during that time. So throughout a single day, if someone works on innovation, then what you see is that thanks to that gap, thanks to that day off, all of that innovation at Google takes place. So in a nutshell, insurance is a very complex industry, so you need to really break it into certain building blocks along with all these developments and their impact. And at the same time, with the adaptation coming in from insurance, I think we're going to move step by step, but at the same time, we might actually experience the Uber moments there. Yes, I think that could be possible. Actually, that was precisely the purpose of the question, because we insurers sometimes think and say, well, we're not catching up. We should really radically change things. We should work in a wholly different way. But maybe in our industry, it's not going to be disruptively changing. So we need to really be aware of what is going to change. So we talked about what's happening outside. Let's talk about what's happening internally. Just like Mr. Chairman said, I'm going to add one thing. Before Istanbul Fintech Week began, there used to be industry-oriented events Insure and Innovate was one of it. In 2017, I was in the Maritime Museum. And in my speech there, I said, especially when it comes to regulations, catching up so late, and they were really lagging behind, I talked about that. But since then, a very actively working regulatory authority emerged. A lot of action has been done. So we have this authority that really catches up with the times, that really has a vision. So that's a fantastic development, and I see a huge change between then and now. And it's not only about catching up with the day, but the authority is telling us that they're going to even introduce changes that will add to what's happening today. So I'm going to ask to the participants in the industry, what kind of innovations should we offer to the regulatory authority? But I would like to first hear from them. We don't have a lot of time left. Please be brief if possible. Bilal said, well, we might not turn it into an Uber moment all of a sudden. I agree with that. When we get together with stakeholders, we determine a digital transformation strategy, and actually we do not want to make a decision on our own. What we try to do is to really assess the situation. We have insurtech, we have open banking, but what kind of a recipe to follow in our country? Because we cannot just copy and paste into the country. You might not have the desired effect if you just copy and paste. So what we do is we analyze the situation with our stakeholders, and then we at the supervision authority go over the possible innovative developments. For example, digital insurance. That is something to be made from scratch, and actually it rewrites the entire legislation, insurance codes and capital requirements, because you open up a whole new path. If you're going to set up a company, are we going to integrate classical companies? Are we going to, for example, dictate the capital requirements that would dictate to traditional companies? Maybe we want to really change the conditions that we have stipulated in the legislation for current traditional companies. Startups always say, for example, industry representatives should be innovative. Okay, small entrepreneurs should be in the industry, but when we do a cost and benefit analysis, they are producing niche manufacturing items, and then we as the regulatory authority want to encourage enterprises that further boost financial inclusion. Classical licensing may not work for these people. Maybe we want to be more resilient. Maybe we want them to be more flexible. We might want to really look into those options. Burak just mentioned how insurtech needs to do data management if they want to really leverage this area. So data is something that we focus on. Yes, with the data protection code abiding by, what kind of a decision are we going to make? Who is going to be the owner of the data? How do we protect it against manipulation? Who is going to be in charge of the protection of privacy? What kind of mechanisms will be in place? Maybe it's just going to be an anonymous, centralized information protection. So all of that data center needs to have certain rules set in place. That's a part of our agenda. But when we think of developing the ecosystem, we also need to act in a disciplined way. We're both a regulation and a supervision authority. We need to really protect the benefits of the stakeholders. Abuses should be prevented. And how do we do supervising with the public and private agencies? What are the minimum IT systems, and what are the criteria should they have? Maybe there are IT regulations that are already underway. That's a part of our agenda. Just like I've said, we should not lag behind the ecosystem. We should be able to integrate that into our country. We have a very well-placed intention, As a public authority, we are producing strategy in that regard, and we are on the way of developing them. I am very pleased to share you with that. With these panel discussions, I really dream on, but at the same time, I know that there is a private blockchain, and I just dreamed of a data set. It's quite a bit of a dream that we can talk about. So let's move on to our companies. What kind of technologies are we talking about? What kind of demands are changing? Let's begin with you. I'm quite excited actually as well. So, insurtechs are really excited by data most. So when it comes to insurance, here we have data protection law, and then you have the GDPR in Europe, and that's a bar from entry into the market. So actually, I am very pleased to be here, along with Dilek and along with the president. So basically, they're telling us that the conditions are going to be set in the market. That's really giving us a lot of hope, what they have said. Maybe it's not going to move really, really fast because insurance is a very heavy ship. We are talking about how you cannot really steer it in a different direction very quickly. We have mega systems, we have blockchain, IoT, Web3. They offer fantastic opportunities, but adaptation into the current systems of these elements is not very, very easy. We are hopeful about digital systems, but I've been on both sides of the table, so I used to be in the public sector, now I'm in the private industry, so I've also had the chance to experience the digital side. It's a challenging business, insurance. On the digitization side, if we were going to expect something from everywhere, it's going to be quite difficult. Technological advancements really push us forward. Customer expectations also do the same way. And profit loss. Now profitability has been so low that we have come to an understanding that we need to do what we do in a different way. So we need to do things differently. That is how innovation is born. Change is born. I'm not sure who that quote is belonging to, but somebody defined it as the following. Innovation is not about seeing change as a threat, but as an opportunity. So what can we do? That's what we have been focusing on. And last year, we launched a customer platform, Gartner. Gartner is an important platform. And after that, we won an innovation award about 6 months later. We have come together as 6 companies, and we wanted to leverage 3 of them. And actually, the biggest leverage comes from our customer base, 12 million of them. And now, when we think of the legacy system, on that we had a back-end and front-end, and then we have an API platform. What we did was to use all of that to make sure our customers receive non-insurance services. So what we do is low-cost services that the customers cannot find elsewhere feel this way. Insurance is just a paper, and it's just a piece of paper that we look at it when there is damage. But it's as though when there's no damage, it's money paid for nothing. But we wanted to just make sure insurance turns into something tangible. So when they receive an insurance policy, we want people to say, well, I have paid 5,000 TL for insurance, but 2,000 of them has been saved. So this is a model that's being experimented, and it's developing. It's going to have certain phases, and at a certain level, we're going to see that the cost of insurance in people's minds, in customers' minds, should come to 0. Actually, on our platforms, customers should not pay us. We bring them together with customers. We're talking about 12 million of them. And 2.3 million people organically downloaded this platform. 65% of them are active users, there are 1.7 million, and that's a huge boon for a startup. So if you have a product service, you cannot find a customer, here is a platform where you can find customers. So customer services support is required. We also expect certain standards from them, and we are supporting innovation. And at the same time, the biggest challenge in the industry is intense competition. Can we move a step further? Acquisition of customer is actually costlier than customer retainment. So the results that we're gathering are showing us a great motivation to move even further in this area. I'm following the developments from a little bit afar, but it's really happy news. So it's not going to be Uberized, we're saying, but people pay for something and then they don't use it for a long time. There is no other industry where such a service or product exists. So insurance conceptually could be a part of people's lives all the time, and I think if we create benefit, and that could be sustainable. So I'm going to be fast and brief because we have a time limitation. At Cigna, we have 6 basic values in our among corporate values. So we embed this in the ways of work in our colleagues. So we have internal and external input. So how do we create innovation? We have an idea exchange platform internally. So we gather these ideas, and then we have an innovation department. They present them and they work with the idea owners, and then they adapt it to business strategies. Then they're becoming a part of the business plan. So we are actually nourishing the sense of innovation within our premises. So we are testing and learning. This is something very central to what we do. Just last week, with remote medicine implementations, we had a themed activity, and we had nearly 50 ideas that came from within. 4 of them prioritized. 1 of them is a part of the business plan already. So we are talking about an active, live process. And on an external level, we have InsurTech collaborations. We're talking about business partnerships to co-create value. So Tamamlıyor is a successful InsurTech company. So what we do is we work together to see how we can develop a product. That's very valuable. Our way forward is, of course, API development. That's an indispensable element. Insurance needs to be a part of every part of life. For that, we need to have APIs so that we have voluntary insurance that is embedded in any kinds of services that are being purchased. So our vision at Cigna is to touch lives, and we would like to bolster that with innovation. That's a building block of what we do. There is a very important saying called innovation eats culture at breakfast, but we shouldn't be done just for the sake of it. It needs to be really embraced wholly. Lastly, Fatih from Anadolu Sigorta, we would like to see what you would like to say. So, what breeds innovation? Competition. Competition makes us active, and you need to step out of your comfort zone. We at the insurance industry have certain numbers. In terms of FX values, for many years, we are navigating around $10 billion premiums in value. But of course, in terms of increasing population, vehicles, and houses, we cannot create value added. Why? Because with competition, we try to keep the prices at affordable levels. That's why up to now we have not really reached the level of capital accumulation that we wanted. Like outside of Turkey, banks are owners of insurance companies, but the reverse is true for us. Sorry, says the speaker. So insurance companies own banks, but it's the opposite here. So first of all, we need to have capital so that we can build more capacity, so that we can build on what we have. All right, so there is a bit of a deadlock here. Then technology can open up really perfect paths for us. That's how I see it. Just like in every other process, in order to do that, you see leaders and then followers and also people who wait for the last. If you're in the last, then you run the risk of not grabbing a market share and lagging behind. And if you're at the very forefront, then you might take risks. But insurtechs, maybe. Startups really come into the picture at that spot. As catalyzers, they bring you fantastic opportunities. If we establish such an infrastructure with the right partnerships, businesses can move forward in so different ways. We at Anadolu Sigorta lay a lot of emphasis on R&D. Hopefully, in the upcoming terms, we're going to see other companies onboarding. Here is what matters. R&D needs to become a part of culture, and it needs to be sustainable. And you need to have internal entrepreneurship programs, and you need to also have hackathons, and then you need to work with startups. We want to take it to a certain level for that. And our main goal in the upcoming terms is to follow a new business model and move ahead. So we are open to all startups and investments. Well, I'm not going to talk about the agencies, but I am responsible for agencies as well. I'd like to talk on their behalf too a little bit, because there are huge gaps on the agencies side too. Because when we think of blockchain-based businesses, they're not working that way. They work on blockchain-based ready-made platforms, and in terms of personal data protection, information protection, they are our soft spot, the agencies. So what about the infrastructure of the programs that they use? They should go through approval mechanisms. There is a huge cybersecurity gap in the agencies. Another thing that I would like to point out is the following. What do we do in this regard? I mentioned it in the first part of my speech. So, insurance is born out of managing damage. So when we think of visual assessment and scoring, and with R&D programs, we have developed commercial products. So we have developed products that can be marketed to other businesses when we can export them as well. We are marketing people, but that's a low value added. But if you export programs, then you can add values to the country as well. And I would like to hereby thank the organizers and the entire team.
In this case, the last word is that when we share our business, we like to compete as we work in cooperation with one another. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their great insights, for the Secretary General, for the President, for being with us, for their support for us. I'd like to thank them. I would like to thank you.